Hey everyone, welcome to another stupid week. In bad when it happens, worse when it happens in Germany news, the German federal police arrested 50 individuals this past week for plotting a coup against the German government that include kidnappings and killings of public officials. You know, usual German shit. The plot originated out of the Reichsburgers movement, which sounds like Kanye West's new fast food chain, but literally just means Reich citizens because everything in German sounds horrifying. They believe that every German state since World War I has been illegitimate and more like a corporation, and that they don't have to follow any of its rules. Suspects included members of the German military, including the elite German special forces. Once again, bad when it happens anywhere else, really bad when it happens in Germany just because it sounds worse. Personnel cuts have hit the tech sector really hard, as well as newsrooms. CNN announced a couple weeks ago that they're having extensive personnel cuts. Another organization that has decided that it is their mandate from God to determine what is right and wrong and enforce it. A senior Iranian official had mentioned that the Iranian morality police had been abolished after months of protests that were set off after the death of a woman who was detained by the morality police. Of course, anything that the New York Times reports or the Iranian government says has to be taken with a grain of salt, and it's still not clear if the morality police has actually been disbanded or they'll just call themselves something different. And finally, in We're All Doomed news, Benjamin Netanyahu's mandate to form a government expired earlier this week, but he was provided a 10-day extension by the president of Israel. Note that he was given a 10-day extension, not the maximum of 14. So what will the incoming government look like? Let's start from the first person that signed a coalition agreement with Netanyahu, Avi Maoz, the MK from the one-person Noam party, which will be given $100 million of taxpayer money so that it can tell a portion of the Israeli taxpayer that they aren't human beings via the education system. Next up is Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's Cartman, who will be given the newly created role of Minister of National Security, which would be funny if it wasn't so scary, considering that in the past, Ben-Gvir was determined to be a national security risk by the Israeli Security Service. Here's a video of our new national security minister in the past, surrounded by bodyguards, waving a gun around and screaming like a little wussy. So far, those are the only actual two parties that have signed legitimate coalition agreements with Netanyahu. He's still wrangling with the Haredi parties and Smotrich's religious Zionism party. But it seems clear that our next housing minister isn't really sure that there's a housing crisis, saying, people are always talking to me about a housing crisis. I don't know much about the housing ministry until now, so I don't know if there's really a crisis. And also adding, from what I see, there is construction all around. Never mind figures from the Central Bureau of Statistics released last month showing housing prices have risen by nearly 20% over the past year, the largest one-year increase in recent memory. But don't worry, guys. The housing minister sees a crane from his window, so it's all good. Remember that this is the guy who originally wanted to be finance minister and said before, you don't need math to run the finance ministry. This week will begin the legislative blitz for 10 days in order to get Netanyahu to cobble his coalition together, as for example, Aryeh Deri currently can't serve as a minister on account of being a criminal. He's currently serving a suspended sentence instead of a jail sentence because the judge in the case was under the impression he'd be leaving politics. Isn't that funny? The ultimate joke would be that after this huge victory, he still can't get a coalition together and the clock runs out and we go to new elections, all because these selfish bastards who want to run our government can't even get their shit together quick enough to form a government. And finally, in I didn't know that was a thing news, soccer players aren't the only people having a tournament in Qatar. In honor of the World Cup, they're also hosting a camel beauty contest. And as you may or may not guess, it's kind of weird.
فبالتالي احنا يتم فحص جميع الإبل المشاركة قبل السماح لها بالمشاركة لكشف عمليات العبث هي بين قوسين عمليات التجميل في الإبل.
I don't know what's worse. The idea that there's some doctor out there who's doing plastic surgery on a camel, or that there's some guy out there whose job it is to make sure that the camels haven't had plastic surgery. All right, that's our show. Thanks. Come back next week. I'm sure everything will still be stupid.